by your neck or thumbs, you're doing okay.
Right.
Let's see. And I saw a text from Gary this morning, so I would expect he's probably going to call in.
Tell him wherever you want.
Did I hear Jim's laugh?
I
Jim,
didn't get his name, not his picture
I
yet.
don't see him, but okay.
There's Kathy. There's Sam.
Kathy. Hi, Kathy.
I figured it
You got
out. I
your
had
hair
another.
cut.
No.
No?
Just never know what it's going to look like on a given day. My husband cut it. I don't know if you heard that story.
Oh, no.
Yeah. That was a while ago. I cut the front and he cut the back.
Looks good.
Desperate times, you know.
I didn't lead to desperate people cutting our hair. All right, I think we can probably start without Gary because we're not positive he's coming. So I don't want to spend a lot of time waiting for him, if that's all right. This is the finance meeting where we go through the agenda. And then I had two other things that I thought we should touch on it when we're done with the agenda. One of them is just the update on, were the auditors in or are they coming in? I lost track of the days.
coming in, not yet.
What, Doug?
Coming in, not yet.
Coming in still? Okay. And then do we have any clue on what the budget assumptions are going to be for sales tax for next year? Are we getting any guidance from anyone or are we just going to have to pull it out of our ear?
Yeah.
I can,
we
oh, go ahead.
stuff that we can talk about with regard to a lot of that. Do you want to do that now or do you want to go through the agenda first?
No, the agenda is fine. Yeah. So, maybe, does somebody have it where they could share their screen?
Yeah, I can do it. Here.
Okay. Hang on, I have to look it up.
Okay, can you guys see the agenda now?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
This is my first time using two screens on the desktop to do this, so I'm still.
You have to be ambidextrous.
Yeah. So I've got all of your guys' faces on the right, and I got the agenda on the left. So that's what I keep looking at when I look into the left. So.
All right. On these written communications, Doug, are the upcoming changes from charter anything that we need to be aware of?
So there's continuously stuff going on with charter. And one of the things that we got to talk about, and Kathy, we started looking into is the cable franchise. I don't know anything specific relative to the communications, Linda, that we need to worry about right at the moment. But the cable franchise agreement has been expired for quite some time. FLCC 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, asked us to see FLTV with FLCC asked us to see if we couldn't get some changes made to their basic streaming service at FLTV. So I think that that's something that we've got to factor in. And then we'd also talk with the city to see if we couldn't get something figured out in terms of if we were to do something together, because the city's agreement is also expired. Kate, I know you also had looked into it and we got an update. We got South Bristol, I think's updated agreement, which they increased the percentage. I think
it was Bristol and East Bloomfield were the two, and the one was right in line with where we were, and the other had jumped it way up.
I think 5%. I think there's a cap, the maximum you can go. I think we're at like 3%, and I think the maximum you can go is like 5%, give or take. I might not be exactly right on those numbers. The one question that I had, and I still have, if we get into an in-depth conversation about that, is our revenue for cable franchise agreement fees has been relatively flat for the last 5+ years. However, we continue to add more and more units. Now, what Spectrum and prior to that, whatever it was, Time Warner, blah, 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 they always said to me is, yes, you're adding more and more new homes, but they're not necessarily our customers. And they gave me this confidential information, which I had sent out to the board like probably a year ago now, saying that the numbers had not really increased. That's why our revenue was staying relatively flat. But there's a lot in terms of that to dig into. That's not something that we can really dig into today. There's a whole lot of issues associated with that. That's like you pull a thing of yarn and you keep pulling a string, and all of a sudden you find that there's a million different pieces all in there. So.
Okay. Well, it would be great if we could get our percentage raised up to, if we work with the city, maybe we have a better chance of doing that.
Yeah, so that cable franchise revenue currently is about $85,000 a year, give or take. So, I mean, even increasing at 2%, maybe we'll get up to closer to 100, but it's not like it's a huge number.
No, but it's the equivalent of one part-time employee, maybe,
Of course, they will just pass along those increased costs to all the customers in the town, right?
That is correct. It's actually a tax on the residents.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I thought it was coming out of their profit.
No. It's
Oh,
a direct
it's coming
tax
out.
to residents.
It'll come out of you.
Oh, then there's no good outcome there.
They like to let their customers know that too.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, by the time they add on, it's a very inefficient way to collect money. Yeah. If it was coming out of their profit, I felt completely different about it.
Absolutely.
So good
If
point.
only we could hammer Frontier that way too.
I know. They're not providing good service either, and that's the problem.
No, I'll be the first to swear to that.
Okay.
And occasionally at them.
Don't blame you there, Terry. Been there.
Still there.
Okay. Resolutions.
All right, so you want to just kind of go through these one at a time here. So the first one is the monthly financial reports. Obviously are attached to the agenda. The next one is, and Kate, you want to touch on some of these transfers?
Yeah, the budget transfers have an attachment. That's the journal entry for the budget transfers. And most of them were just very small cleanup things. Being that we're in June, we've been taking a look through each of the lines and just making sure the expenses are going to the right places. We caught a couple of things that had been applied to our attorney line that could have been applied to the planning board and that kind of thing. So we just moved some things around. As you know, we had the auditors come in and they were helping me a little bit at the beginning of the year. So we did need to make a transfer into the auditor contractual line, which we took out of the personnel line where we had reserved money to have Chris Singer come in and help. So it was really for the same purpose, just moved it to a different line. The assessor budget transfer was simply just to clean up the resolution we did moving Pam, because we changed Pam over to the assessor personnel line. So we just needed to move the rest of her balance over there as well, which really was done in that resolution. We just needed to clean it up. And then storm sewers, when we did the budget transfer, we took a little bit of money away from a line that needed a little bit. So we just had to keep that from going negative. We had to move that. And it was the same thing with waste and recycling. And you'll see a resolution for the waste and recycling equipment. Jim, I know you've talked about this a lot with the containers. So you'll see a resolution this month to also increase 8160.200 for trash containers. And we can talk about that when we get to that resolution.
Sounds good.
Are you guys seeing the resolution? I just don't know what you guys are seeing. Can you?
We are.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's that first one. Okay, the next resolution, our standard, our annual, I know you guys all look forward to setting the public hearing on overriding. So that's this resolution 2021-29 here that would establish a public hearing to be held on July 20th at 6 o'clock at the Canandaigua Town Hall. again, on overriding the tax cap. This year, this is the standard thing that we do every year where we'll go ahead and we'll set the public hearing, hold the public hearing, we'll have the local law for you to override the tax cap. If we don't need to override the tax cap, then we'll go back and repeal the law at the end of the year. But this really kind of kicks off the budget process. I can almost guarantee you we're going to need to override the tax cap because of the special district. Again, it's the same thing every year. The special districts factor into it regardless if the tax rate, the town tax rate, even if we keep it at $1.03, we're likely going to need to exceed the tax cap because of all the special districts and the stuff that we're doing, especially in terms of the water.
Are we expecting that we would be having a live meeting in July? Is that what you think?
So that's a great question. That was actually one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about, especially the board here. So Kathy and I have been talking about this, and Kathy, I think you sent me guidance that said the executive orders say no in-person meetings through July 6th, I think, right?
Correct.
So I guess the question is, if that executive order expires, and theoretically we could, if everybody's comfortable, have the July meeting in person, but if he extends it, obviously it'll have to be Zoom again.
Is there a way for everyone to put their computer or put themselves on mute and only unmute when you're talking? Because there's somebody with a lot of background noise. Perfect. Is there a way to have not a hodgepodge meeting, but a meeting with Zoom and people there live to give people the flexibility? You know, if we had the screen up with maybe some people, if they weren't comfortable coming in or something like that, that they could still Zoom into our meeting, or is that not a thought?
Well, we could, but that defeats the purpose, I think. Kathy, I think you were going to say something.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say we could. In fact, I don't know that I'll be able to do an in-person meeting, but I could do separately like you've done from Florida.
Remote, right.
But I mean, the easiest way is obviously, and everyone can still bring their laptop or not their laptop, whatever they use to get on now, and then do a hybrid meeting where at the meeting people are individually on, but they're still at the meeting physically.
I think what Doug was pointing out was that the Wi-Fi at the town hall is terrible, and it may not support so many people being zoomed in on at the same time. We should probably do, if we're going to do that, we should trial it in a committee meeting first, you know, come in and try to see if we can all zoom in while we're there.
I mean, I know when Terry, when you guys held the meeting for the water project, some of us called in. It wasn't by video.
Right.
So they may have, I don't know why that couldn't be video other than, I suppose, just haven't figured out the logistics of it, but
Yeah.
that's a possibility too.
I think the only thing for that, you guys will have to look, there is a remote participation policy, and we'll have to check that because I believe you have to have visible video to be able to vote, I think is what the remote participation policy.
Yeah, so we would need to use more like what Kathy was talking about, this with everybody being on Zoom.
So we do have the smart board, obviously, and we could set that up like we normally do. But again, we got to get back to the point of, hey, if this rule is still in place that you're not supposed to have in-person meetings of 10 or more, we're probably not going to be able to have an in-person meeting anyway.
Well, if you limit it to the town board,
And have everybody else Zoom.
we rarely have an audience of more than 5. Usually it's 1. You know, what constitutes a meeting anyway? If I make an appointment to come and see you, Doug, is that a meeting? We're not supposed to have face-to-face meetings?
Well, that's not a.
What about a member, a person, somebody from the public that comes in, you know, to pay their water bill? Is that
No,
a meeting?
it's, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you. Go ahead. It's what it is you're supposed to limit in-person meetings as much as possible. If you have to have them, it has to be, you have to limit it to less than 10. And how can you limit it when the public has to be, you have to give the public an opportunity to be there. So it can be done. It's just a question of figuring out how to do it. Now, the communication that I sent, I don't know if I sent it to everybody. I'm losing track of what I'm sending. I think I just sent it to Doug, but I can send it. I think the county's reading of that there has to be temperatures taken was incorrect. I don't know if you noticed that. The executive order allows you to take temperatures of people, but the county is taking that as they have to take temperatures of everyone coming in, which I think is not a proper reading of it, but that's a separate issue. So if you look at that email, which I'll send out, but the main thing is to make sure that the public has access, right? So, and a meeting is constituted for our purposes of quorum being present, right? Meetings of 2 people, no one cares about. So if we have, the idea is to keep it less than 10, and if we have a public meeting, that if there's a quorum present, then the public has to be present.
So a committee meeting can be held face-to-face over there now.
There's less than 10.
Okay, good.
We're supposed to limit them to necessary. So that's the question. Does it have to be? If it has to be in person, then you can do it. Not just because it's convenient to do so.
No, well, I'm thinking more of the Public Works Committee and planning when we have a sheaf of 10 or 15 drawings that are 2 feet by 4 feet, trying to review them and look at them and, determine, yeah, we should do this. No, we shouldn't do that. It's very difficult to do that, with a Zoom meeting or some
Right.
other means,
Well, then I would say that if you feel that, like we discussed previously for that other meeting,
Yeah.
that's justified for being in person, then it's always a judgment call with all of these.
Well, of
You
course,
can justify your judgment based on reasonable, good reason, then I think you're good, which,
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, keep in mind, even with those, you guys, I mean, we've got pretty much all of our staff is back working here in the town hall. We've got some unique circumstances where we're in and out here a little bit, but even the executive orders still say they're encouraging remote working and everything else, but we pretty much have everybody's kind of back up and operational here, more or less.
So would we want to adjust this resolution to say something like, it might be held by Zoom meeting? I mean, we're advertising it as being held at the town hall.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting the sense that we may not feel like it's necessary. It's there because we could do it via Zoom.
We could certainly add something about Zoom. You guys could maybe do an amendment during the meeting to add that, or we can certainly we'll set it up. I would think, at least for the foreseeable future, even if we go back to in-person meetings, it'll be some sort of a combination where we're going to allow people to participate by Zoom. The other thing is that's one of the things that comes out of this. The other thing that Zoom allows us to do that we never really had prior to us using that is we're recording even this meeting right now, and then we're posting it on the cloud so that people can then go back and listen to it and watch it at any time they want. So, and we've also developed a Town of Canandaigua YouTube channel now where all of this stuff goes also. So there's, even like that, for instance, once we go back to in-person meetings, I'm sure we're still going to use Zoom and record these, and people will be able to call in and all that stuff. So.
Okay, great. Oh, Jean, you're on mute.
Jean,
Take yourself off mute.
There I am. Can you hear me? No.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But can't we do both? We can have the in-person meeting and still do the Zoom with the
correct. That's
the cameras in the courtroom, right?
correct. That's exactly
Oh, right, Doug, you're right. We can just add a little bit of language in there.
Yep.
Yeah, just to signal to people that, but it does feel like for public hearings, if there are people who don't have a computer, I don't even know how they find out about it actually, though, if they don't have a computer. It's a,
Good question.
I mean, we posted in the paper, but those are really hard to find too. Just
So
Oh,
what we've also done in the past is Gene will send out a press release about this, and we'll also do postings and everything like we normally do, and encourage people to provide comments in writing. They can provide it ahead of time to you guys, to me, to Gene, to whoever, and then we can share that. So we can make sure we do that and include in those communications all those options for. And actually, I usually, for whatever reason, it seems like I'm always on vacation around the 4th of July before this meeting, and I get phone calls saying, hey, how come you're overriding the tax cap? Because the newspaper does a story about it. So anyway.
Okay.
so there'll be an amendment to that at the meeting.
To add that we'll be doing Zoom. Should we just decide as a board at our next meeting, or talk about it at our next meeting to say that we're going to do Zoom for the rest of the year? Just kind of make a decision, or are we thinking we need to make a new one every month?
Well, I think the resolution that we had was that for the duration of the
The governor.
executive orders. So
Right.
once if those expire or change, then I think we should look at what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I assume it's going to allow for some form of remote for every, for the foreseeable future, at least till the end of the year. But my suggestion is see what the governor comes out with.
And then
Even today, I mean, I think with phase 3, I think government offices can go back to full staff, or that has already happened. I think that already happened. And one of those emails that I sent out yesterday, again, it's like lightning speed. I keep getting these, but I would expect in the next couple of days a lot of stuff to come out.
Okay, perfect. All right, credit card for water payments.
Gene, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, what we can do with Link Corporation, which is our water software program, when the whole pandemic started, Doug and I were talking about this option that they've always had about people paying online with a credit card. So one of the companies that they use is Municipay. So there's, Municipay, which we have used in the past, and they have the same processing rates as VPS. So I would like to get that set up for the July water billing system, so we can put a note on the bill itself, and then we'll also get stuff out via social media and our newsletter. So I was just wondering if you guys had any questions on that.
Is there any fee to us for making that, going live with that? No.
There's no fee to the town.
And our notification to the residents would also alert them to the fact that it isn't included. The fee is extra, right?
Well, yeah, we'll make sure that the note that we put on the water bill, states that, and any other communication. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a good idea.
So the next resolution, if there's no other questions on that, pertains to the budget adjustment for the steel waste containers. And so you might remember a couple of months ago, there was actually a resolution 2020-80 that authorized the sale. So Jim went out to sell some of the containers that we don't necessarily, that aren't the most practical for us. And I think the total amount was $7,775, Jim, or $7,785 that you received.
Yes.
For those containers. And it actually did a little better than what we were expecting.
Yeah.
So this budget adjustment actually takes that revenue and increases that line, and then also increases the expense line so that Jim can replace the containers with the kind of containers we need, right? Essentially.
Correct.
Sounds good.
Then this next one, Jim and Terry, this is all you guys. I am going.
Well, thank you, Doug.
You know what? I'm going to put the golf ball on the tee for you, and there you go, both of you. Knock it away.
Well, Jim is really good with a driver off the tee, so.
So We in the resolution, when we went out to bid, the tank was cobalt blue because there was an upcharge for making it sky blue. After we got the bids in and our material cost that the town's paying for came in less than what was budgeted, I'm coming back to the town board and asking them to consider changing that tank to sky blue because the tank's always been sky blue up on that hill. I'm concerned with going to a darker color that we will get, I want to say black, but complaints from other residents that why didn't you make it the same color? It's been this way for 45 plus years. We can do that without increasing our budget. It would basically take the savings that we have from the pipe and use that expense to pay for the sky blue color of the tank. That is,
So it costs $65,000 to have it be sky blue?
That's
Yes,
correct. And that's because the company that's manufacturing these tanks, 95% of what they do is this cobalt blue. You've seen these tanks at farms and other places that are that color. And the upcharge, that what they're telling us anyway, and I would believe it from my years in industry, that they have to stop their whole coating effort, because this isn't just paint. This is almost like an enameled surface. You know, it's baked on the steel. They have to clean their whole system up, go to the sky blue, and then on the other side of that, reverse that process, clean it all up, go back to their traditional cobalt blue. One of the other things is that these tanks are going to be quite a bit higher than the tank we currently have, right, Jim?
yeah, they'll be 30 feet higher than our existing tank.
So they will be quite visible from certainly the other side of the lake and along the lake looking up toward Rock Oak Hill. You'll be able to see these things. So,
Seems like, sorry. Seems like
I mean,
an awful lot
it's-
of money for a color.
well, it's not paint. If it was paint, it would be a lot cheaper. It's a baked on surface.
Hey,
I'm not
That's
saying
the
it doesn't
reason
cost
why.
that, but I'm saying why are we doing this for $66,000 just because some people, I mean, why don't we see if we can get some input from people? I mean, these tanks, I mean, cobalt blue is a lovely color too. I don't know that, we're assuming that people are gonna complain probably no matter what we do. But if we, you know, we say we're doing it because that's the way they come and it's $66,000 cheaper. In a time like this, when every penny counts, I think that, you know, stands for itself.
I hear what you're saying. It's my recommendation to the board that we do this due to the fact that we've always had sky blue tank to blend in with our scenery, our vistas of the community. So that's all what you guys consider.
There is another thing I think that we just need to touch on in whatever color the board decides, whatever. I actually wore my cobalt blue jacket today in honor because I knew we were going to have this conversation. But the cost of the project is $7,570,000. That cost is not changing. That cost does not change at all. The project would still be $7,570,000. The $65,900, this budget adjustment, Jim actually was able to get water pipe for less than what we were originally planning for. And so it would take 65,000, which was just about the savings out of that line, and transfer it over to the other lines so that you could essentially pay the cost. So the overall project would remain $7,570,000 if you chose to do this budget adjustment to get the cobalt blue tanks. Just wanted to.
How much of a contingency do we have in the 7.5?
I think it was around 10 or 12%, wasn't it, Jim? Something around 800,000.
100,000.
So if we decided to leave it cobalt blue, because there's lots of farm things around that are that color already, and save the 66,000, will we just put that into contingency?
Well, you just wouldn't spend it.
That we wouldn't spend it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not.
Well, we may not
it
spend
doesn't.
it. Okay, we'll just take it away then.
Yeah,
So
it
we
doesn't. It
save.
wouldn't get dumped into contingency. It's just wouldn't be spent.
Okay, we would just save the money then.
Yes.
And just to point out, there's a typo, aesthetics is, I think
Okay.
that's supposed to be aesthetics, right?
Oh, yeah.
Look,
Oh, yeah, it's aesthetics.
Yeah.
It's another word.
we'll fix that.
I mean, it doesn't, the color certainly doesn't do anything to the functionality of the tank or the whole system or the whole project. So it's really the aesthetics, and it's the sight of two giant tanks up on that hill. They're going to be visible from quite a large area. That this is the opportunity to change it. You can't, if you chose to change the color after the tanks were installed, that would be impossible. The paint will not stick to it. So
Right.
this is the only opportunity, and the opportunity only exists really for probably a few more days, because they're going to schedule the first tank to be entering production soon. So we have to decide what we want to do fairly quickly.
I know we had spoken about this way back when. It seems like now to be changing it without input from people. I mean, one could argue that the dark blue would actually be less intrusive. It's closer to the color of the trees. Something bright blue might stand out more. I mean, yeah, I definitely could see both sides of this argument, but I don't know. It seems like an awful lot of money, but
Well, the other side of this, of course, is that if the specification had been, sky blue to begin with, the 65.9 would have been buried in the cost, and we would have gone on with the project, and you wouldn't have noticed.
I happened to be, I was there when you were discussing it, so that's why I noticed it.
So I think you guys made the determination earlier on that to save money, the cobalt would be okay. And then my thought is, because we're so tight on money and because this all gets passed along, I do think if we could save the money, I would, at this point in time, I think I would go with saving it.
Any other time I might be willing to do it, but when we're talking about like an 18% reduction is what they're saying in sales tax at the end of the year. I'm not.
Is it going to affect the ban? Is it going to affect the bond anticipation note or the final bond you get?
I know there was a, I don't think so. I think
So no matter what, it's going to be the $7.5 million, whether we spend the 66,000 or not, right?
No.
Correct. It will be, correct. That is correct. So
Well,
the total project is going to be $7,570,000. And so that's what the bond and everything is all on that paperwork. Regardless if we do this adjustment or not, the total project cost will still be $7,570,000.
Okay.
No, the total that we bond will be 7.5, but the money that's in reserve, we won't, if we don't spend the 66, we can use it to pay down the debt.
No, well,
Or
so
the interest.
the total project cost will be $7,570,000 regardless. That's actually the resolution. That's the bond resolution that we have to pass. And that's actually exactly what we're going to be doing in terms of like the bans and all that stuff. The bond will come later, and that'll be a lesser amount, whether that's 3 million or 3.5 million or whatever. And then any leftover monies essentially that were not spent on the project, we can look at to help offset that. But the total project cost is still going to be $7,570,000.
Right.
But this money that we save will ultimately be less passed along to, in terms of the final bond that we make, the 3 million, whatever.
It could help offset it, yes. It could help
Oh, yeah.
offset later down the road, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
Plus, if we don't have to tap the contingency very much, that
Right,
will
all of
also
that could
reduce
funnel.
the.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where I am.
Well, this is just the opportunity. We wanted to present it to the town board for
I understand.
consideration, and
I
you
know
know,
people may complain because they hate change. They'll see something that's a different
oh
color,
yeah.
freak out. But
Well,
I
we'll
think
just
when we tell them it was a close to $70,000 savings, I think they'll zip their lip, I would guess.
If you were going to tell me it was going to be bright pink or something, I would understand. Like you said, there are going to be people who are going to complain because it's light blue.
I doubt it. I seriously doubt that, Kathy, but that's your opinion. I have my opinion, so.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this, right? We each have a vote.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see how it goes.
Okay, so the next one, and Jim, I'm gonna let you, this is the lease agreement with Ontario County regarding the water infrastructure improvements, Kramer Road. So this is again the water project, and this is the lease agreement. And I don't know how much we want to get into here. I mean, we've had ongoing conversations with other landowners and everything else, but this is the basic agreement with the county for us to basically access, because the county owns the property where the water tanks are going. We tried to see if we could work out some sort of arrangement where the town of Canandaigua could end up owning it, since the tanks are our tanks, but the county wants to continue to own it because of the 911 communications, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is a lease agreement essentially for us to access it, right, Jim, and put the water lines in.
That's correct. We have been going a long time with the county to get this agreement hashed out. There is a provision in there to allow the adjacent landowner to access their ag land, which we would have to, probably use the wrong word, indemnify or keep the, if that person were to use that driveway, and we allow it, the county wouldn't be responsible for any litigation the town would be. Am I correct saying that?
Right, exactly. But I think one of the issues that, just to make everybody aware of, and I just highlighted that, I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Can you see the lease agreement? Okay. So one of the adjacent landowners, I think, wants access for non-agricultural purposes. So I don't know that we're ever going to be able to come to an agreement on that. We're going to try to work that out. But still, this lease agreement is really between the town and the county, and that issue is kind of standalone separately on the side.
Correct.
Region. Yep.
So that would be up to us to decide.
Right. So basically, what it comes down to is if we don't necessarily get a temporary or permanent easement for the adjacent landowner, we're going to put the water main right up the road and install it that way so we can get the project done.
Right. Is there any scheduled meeting or anything with Paul to discuss that?
Cara has put out a meeting request to the parties involved. I'm not sure what she's heard back yet. I'll have to ask.
Yeah, I think she's trying to wrap that up for us by the end of the week to get something scheduled. But
Okay.
So this agreement,
some moving pieces still.
well, this agreement is, I don't see it here right on the screen, but from reading it, it goes in 10-year increments. Is that it gets renewed? Someplace in there it talks about.
The time, term, 10
Yeah,
years.
10 years.
Yep. So
Okay,
I did ask that question, Terry. Apparently, I don't know all legal stuff. All I know is you're not allowed to do like a 99-year lease. I have no idea. All I know is every 10 years they'll renew automatically up to
4 years.
So this is like a 50-year one, the first 10 and then 4 10-year renewals.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the question I have is if we grant I don't know, sublease or whatever you call it, whatever the legal term is, for adjacent landowners to use that road to access their property, would that have to be renewed every 10 years also?
Yeah, we wouldn't have the right to the property for any more than what the agreement is.
Yeah. So that kind of, well, I would assume that this thing would be renewed. I mean, there wouldn't be a problem with the county, but
we would make sure that any kind of agreement with the adjacent landowners needs to specify that it's contingent on having this agreement with the county. And when that expires, theirs expires.
Well,
Right.
The other thing that'll happen is the adjacent landowner, it sounds like, wants to put in a couple of houses, some houses. So when that process goes through the development office, the planning board and everything will have to look at, okay, is there access for the homes other than for agricultural purposes? And if there's not, they'll have to put in some other sort of driveway.
Right.
Yep.
If we want to grant that ability for the landowner to use that road to access the property, that is up to us. We either do it or we don't do it.
Well,
Right.
only for agriculture and other non-development related uses, according to this agreement.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to construct a few houses there, this
No
would not
longer
cover
do
that.
Right.
Correct.
I guess that point has to be driven home to the adjacent property owners. So,
And
I mean,
and
if development, if
It's their goal.
non-agricultural uses are what's on their mind, they really have to understand this.
so I had a meeting, Jim, what was it, 2 weeks ago? I think I had a visit from one of the recent landowners, and he came in to meet with me and said that he would not accept this because he was looking to develop this lot, this property. So again, what it boils down to is we either going to get, I mean, this lease agreement is between the town and the county, Jim, right?
Yeah.
So one of the other lease agreements that you're not seeing here would be for us, the town and the adjacent landowner, for us to cross their property with the water line. In order for us to get that agreement, that other adjacent landowner is saying, hey, town of Canandaigua, in exchange for that, I want to be able to use this roadway, existing roadway, to be able to get to my land. And so what the county is telling us is, no, we're not going to give that ability. So if we end up going that route, this is going to have to be adjusted between the town and the county to allow us to do that, because this currently doesn't allow us to do that. And then secondarily, if we don't get that lease agreement between the adjacent landowner and the town of Canandaigua, it doesn't really matter for us. This agreement stays in place, and then we run our water lines down the middle of the road, and we don't need the agreement with the adjacent landowner. And then the adjacent landowner is just allowed to use this for agricultural purposes, and then this agreement stands. So there's still some moving pieces here, and remains to be seen how it's going to play out.
All
Well,
right.
I would think that we have to, since Jim wants to start, well, since we will be starting the project in the next week or two, they really have to make a decision fairly soon. And we do too on this agreement. So, you know, we'll make the decision Monday night on this agreement, and that's it.
Is it a lot more expensive to run the pipe down the road? Is that, are they going to cost us money by not giving us the easement?
It's gonna cost additional around 10,000, Linda. So they have to buy crusher run to fill in the trench.
Okay. And
But the other thing is Linda, is we had budgeted in the original budget for doing pavement restoration on this road.
okay.
So all our I say our biggest, our expenses, roughly $10,000 in crusher run.
Okay. And do we need to allow adjacent property owners the access through this road?
We don't, because that's really technically between the county, because they own the property, and the adjoining landowners.
Oh, so the county is the person who's allowing them to use it. Is that what's going on?
The county will allow them to use it with the understanding that the county won't be liable if anything happens coming on or off their property. And the
And
town would have to accept, town would have to take that
Liability?
liability on.
Well, then if we have to accept the liability, we heard, maybe I'm hearing this wrong, but so say if the property owner is holding up the easement or saying, hey, and that's going to cost us additional money, why would we still allow them to use the road then?
Well, it's not up to us to allow them to use the road. It's up to the county to allow them to use a road.
But the county's allowing them to use the road on our liability.
Well, they will be once we sign this agreement. 'Cause
Right,
they-
so I would say, hey, if we're not the people granting the access, why are we the liable people?
That's a question for the attorneys, and I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, I don't either. What do you think, Kathy?
Not knowing where this came from, I can't, I don't know if that was the agreement that the county wanted us to take some liability on. I have no idea.
Yeah, the
That would-
county attorney wrote the agreement, and he and Chris Nadler worked together, excuse me, on the language, and this is what we came up with.
It just seems interesting that we're not involved in granting that right, and it's going to cost us money if the adjacent landowner doesn't want to do the easement. And it sounds like it's not an issue of it's wrecking their property because they're willing to do the easement, but they want something for it.
Right. Yeah, they're not interested in monetary, they're interested in access to their land.
Yeah. For a different use.
Correct. Which the county doesn't want, as Doug said, per se I won't call it a subdivision, but to get to their property to build a house or two. They're not interested in allowing that to happen on their property.
Well, if we,
Doug has mentioned, probably just be a whole lot easier for everybody to say, okay, we're gonna move forward with the county, put the water main in the road, and if you want to get access from the county to do something else, you take it up with them.
Right, but I don't want us to continuously be liable for, so say they want access for now a development, and now we're having to maintain a road to a certain standard or do something like that. I mean, that should be our decision if we do that, not theirs.
Well, the county actually in this agreement right here, in right of access, it specifically says no to that. In no case is said driveway to be utilized by leasee or any adjacent property owner to provide access to a residence, commercial, or other non-agricultural use.
Right. So I don't know how, so the homeowner wants somehow us to give it to him and
But
we
we can't.
cannot. We
We
don't own the property.
Correct.
Right.
right,
Okay.
so, whether they give us any, whether they give us an easement over the, the edge of the road to put the pipe in, really is kind of a moot point. I mean, there's no access to a residence, commercial, or other non-ag use, so,
They're asking us for something it isn't within our ability to
Right.
grant them.
That's correct.
so it's
We
kind of a
should
moot
tell them
point.
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
we
we
should
need to-
just put the pipe up the middle of the road and say goodbye.
So we have told them that. I actually told him that. I talked to him about this, and his response specifically was, well, get the county to change their mind. And I said, well, that's not,
No,
that's not going to happen.
we want the project to go ahead, and we want to go on our own timeline, so.
And so he said, well, then put the pipe up the middle of the road. And I said, well, that's exactly what we plan to do. And I think, Jim, you had a conversation with the other party involved, and they asked for one last attempt at a meeting to see if we could do something, right? So
Correct.
that's
Okay.
part of the issue too, is there's multiple parties involved here, so.
Well, yeah, but as long as it's agricultural uses, it would be permitted. But if the other landowner has the intent to put a residence or something else there, they can't anyway.
Well, and the other landowner's intent made it very clear is a minimum of 3 to 4 houses, some sort of small housing development, which is clearly not permitted per this lease.
Sounds to me like it's game over.
Yep.
And roundabout way it is.
Okay. Thanks.
So there's no need to schedule another meeting with any of the adjacent property owners.
We could just
I'm not doing out of the courtesy of the landowners that we gave them one last shot. We didn't just
What?
shut them out completely.
One last shot at what, Jim? I mean,
Well, I know, Terry, but I'm just trying to,
well, I
you know,
mean, what they want to do, they're forbidden to do by virtue of this agreement. So it doesn't matter. I mean, getting the extra land or not, really, like
Yeah,
I said,
I
it's a
think
moot
they
point.
hoped I think they hoped we had additional leverage or something in the
Oh.
situation to get them what they want, but I don't really see, it's not really we don't want to slow down our project. It would take a lot longer than this to get that.
Right.
Right.
Hey, Jim, I just noticed here, there's a 7 that's empty. I think you're working with maybe Tom Harvey. Can you get him to update this before Monday so we can adopt a updated version, a clean version?
7 is missing. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
All right, I'll look into that.
Can you close those doors?
Okay.
Okay. That's the lease agreement. Where are we at here? A lot of this stuff is Jim's water project. The next resolution here. 134, approval of CME testing contract. So this is our third-party inspections, right, Jim?
It is part of, sorry about this, folks. It is part of our current budget, so we're not increasing it. But what it is, we're going to enter a contract similar to what we did on Town Line Road with CME doing our inspections.
Sounds good. And it's within the budget of the project, correct?
And then,
Yep.
Next one is the agreement regarding the FLCC water quality improvement project between the county, the town, the college, the watershed, yada, 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 yada.
And so our money in this is coming from Ontario County?
Yes. We're being reimbursed by the county, who got a grant through the Watershed Council in partnership with FLCC, combination of players involved. But the county is administering all that, and so our check will actually be coming from Ontario County.
Didn't Kevin tell us also, Doug, that this money was there?
Yeah.
Isn't this the, yeah.
Okay, good.
Well,
Yeah, it's going to be coming soon, I'm told.
I have a question on this because I got a copy of the county's resolution, and in the county's resolution, it says that the county agrees to pay up to $105,000, but doesn't guarantee the 105. Where our resolution seems to guarantee that it's 105. And Jim, you may know more, but with the reimbursement, is it the last one I saw was like 98,000?
yep.
Will there be additional to get us to the 105, or is it based on what we've done for the project and could be flexed up to?
Oh, sorry, Keith. It's based on what we've done so far in the project, and we have to go back, I'll say July or August, and put in the inflow structure still out there. So there is some more work, or letting vegetation grow before we divert the water into the stormwater facility.
Okay.
But Jim, I also had a question on this one. I saw in the bills this month that there's a couple of bills for stone and some different things that we purchased for this project. Has
Yes.
all of that material been submitted as part of that $90,000 for us to be reimbursed by the county?
Yes.
Okay.
So we should see 90 or 95. What is the amount we're submitting to them?
Was it 98,000?
Oh, 98? Okay.
98,000 and some addition. And Kevin Mulvaney just sent the detail. We can get that forwarded out if you'd like to see that breakdown.
Yeah, I am, I'm the treasurer for the Watershed Association, and Kevin has been coming to us saying he doesn't think he's getting different monies. And so I'm just glad that we're going to get our request in early and hopefully get it. Because I feel like later on there might be people who put their hand out and don't get it filled up.
$98,226.30.
Great.
What's different about this one, Linda, and I think I forwarded an email too, and there's been a lot of different talk about grants. A lot of the DEC grants are frozen, but what's different for us in this regard is the money's coming from the county. So the county's already supposedly got it sitting there in this capital the check's in the mail. We'll see. Okay. Anything else on that one? All right. This next one is also the accompanying budget adjustment for this. Kate, I don't know if you want to touch on this. This is just a.
Yeah, it just goes hand in hand with the previous resolution. And what you see here is we've broken down so what we're doing is we're giving this service. We've already paid the wages. We've already paid for the materials. So what we've done is we're just breaking this up to say for each line item of what we've done, whether it be wages, repairs on the road, or equipment usage. These are the ways that we're getting reimbursed and the breakdown of the 105. And it's been rounded just to make it even numbers. But Jim does, as I said, have a breakdown of exactly, Kevin has that all exactly laid out. We can show you that. This just gets those budget lines increased to account for the 105.
So
What is nice about this is this $21,000. This is for the use of our equipment that normally we would not get that from another service or entity or whatever. So that $20,000 is quote unquote found money, Linda.
Right.
So this was what I was mentioning at the beginning, and now that I see it again, I remember what my concern was. I felt like when we did our budget adjustment for the COVID, that we didn't take down wages for Jim's highway people. We never reduced those because it wasn't appropriate to do it. And now if we put $41,000 into wages, aren't we saying there's more wages than what we calculate if we take the people times the rates and do that? Do you know what I'm saying?
So we've already paid out the wages. The guys actually have been doing some work down at FLCC.
Right.
And the town of Canandaigua has footed the bill. And so this is a reimbursement. So in a way, yes, we're saying we're increasing that line. But the idea is at the end of the year, we're actually going to have that as a surplus, because I don't think the intention is that Jim's going to then have the guys work overtime for up to this amount because we got reimbursed for it. I believe the idea here is that we're going to get reimbursed and then have that as an excess
Right.
at the end of the year for the highway fund, which desperately needs a little bit of excess at the end of the
Right,
year.
and that was why my thought was when we do this and we're raising those up, don't we have additional, now we have additional 105 to apply to things like roads that we aren't going to repair or something that we took out when we took out the $2 million or whatever we took out. I can't remember the exact amount.
So Linda, it's not that we're really going to have the extra money or even to be able to put back in there, because as Kate was saying, you know, so much of this stuff is budget adjustments, touching on fund balance. We had a negative, essentially, fund balance going into this. We didn't take down intentionally when we were looking at the highway fund and looking at the details for the COVID adjustment. Both the contractual line and the personnel line, or the personnel line, I'm sorry, stayed the same. The contractual line was reduced by some repairs, but specifically we knew that this project was coming along, that we wouldn't have to hit the D fund as hard so that it would all balance out in the end. So what this budget, and I'm sorry, I lost part of my screen here, but this budget here, this adjustment actually allows us to make these adjustments. And yes, it does increase some of these lines, but you know, Jim's not looking to run out and make all those repairs or anything. We're watching that very, very closely. Jim and I are talking every couple of days about budget as he's spending stuff. We're continuing to watch that and monitor that, because I think we're going to need some of this still at the end of the year so that we don't end up in a negative fund balance situation.
Yeah, and that's where, that is, I guess, my point, because I feel like this 105, we weren't sure we were going to get it. Now that we are, there's 105 that essentially can go back into highway in some of the little cuts that we did, death by 1,000 cuts, but it wouldn't necessarily go in wages because we already had all their wages budgeted. That was when I looked at the line increasing wages, I thought, oh, it's maybe more likely that we're going to use it somewhere else and not wages. Is that?
Well, just generally in the highway. I mean, the other thing that we have to keep in mind is, you know, we still have winter to go. And Jim and I were just talking about that the other day.
Well, it might be salt.
We used a lot of salt earlier this year. So it's, yes, let's put it back in here so that it matches the grant so that all of our paper trail is accurate. And then if we need to make an adjustment later down the road, we can do that.
Yeah, so I'm figuring later we might take money out of the wage line and put it into salt, or later we'll
Exactly.
take it out of the wage line and put it into road.
Yep.
You know, road work. I don't know all the different lines, but okay. And we're all together on it.
If it isn't exactly 105, is this resolution okay? Because it says 105.
Oh,
Or it
yeah.
just be prorated, or
Well, we're increasing and then we'll get the 105, right, Jim? Are we we're gonna be submitting a voucher or a
98.
request for the full 105, right?
We will.
oh,
Once it's,
okay. I thought it was going to be 98, whatever.
no. So it's
No.
90 right now, but it will
This
be.
one's 98.
Okay,
Okay, thanks.
Jim will make it come out to 105 on the nose.
Well, we still have work to do out there, Terry, but we won't be doing that till either July, or early August, so.
But it will total up to 105.
Well, when I'm done,
Great, thanks. The next one, this isn't so much finance, but Eric, since you're on the line here with us, can you just touch base with us? This is a new referral to the planning board for an MUO rezoning request.
You guys have seen similar ones before, at least the MUO rezoning. So this is in the Uptown area. It's pretty much at the corner of Airport and Somers Road. I believe it would be for, right now, there's a sketch plan that shows, I believe, 67 single-family houses. I think they're around 8,000 square foot lots, something like that. There'd be right now, there it is. Yeah. So this resolution would kick it over to the planning board for their review, which is the first stage in the process. They would review it to see if it is in accordance with the different plans. And then they'll provide a report back to you for probably the July meeting.
Hey, Eric, what's the red line that goes down there?
It's a gas pipeline.
Oh, okay. And then
Whoa.
the water area is what?
It's just for stormwater detention.
I mean, so it makes me think of the thing that Jared's been talking to some residents about, where stormwater stuff is so right on top of houses that the people are dealing with mosquitoes and all sorts of other issues. And now this one looks like a house is sitting on top of a gas
Yeah.
line. It might be a little in the
Yeah.
danger zone.
Careful where you dig.
And
Right.
obviously, this hasn't been engineered exactly, so we don't know how any stormwater management facility might sit within that area. It could be, and probably will be, further away. Definitely, I asked Rocco, how that facility area might work with a, gas line kind of separating it into two separate pieces. And in the end, that gas line won't be on anybody's property. And I think we've asked them to put like a trail, which would eventually, if you follow that kind of northwest, would go up to the Auburn Trail line. Yeah, so hopefully nobody would be digging into that area.
Eric,
Is there
doesn't
any-
the town board have the option to say, no, go back to the drawing board, come back with a different concept plan? I mean, don't they have that ability to do that? I mean, they don't have to go with this design.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this is not-
Did you,
for clarification,
also, did you talk to them about the school bus station and the lighting?
Oh, I've not done that yet. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So this, just for clarification, this isn't the town board making a decision on this. This isn't the town board saying, yes, move forward. This is referring it to the planning board for an advisory opinion, and then it'll come back to the town board for the town board to say, yes, proceed, or no, don't.
So we could refer it to planning, but we could also say, here's some things we noticed that we want planning to pay particular attention to.
Sure, you could do that, or you could wait until the planning board provides their comments, and then you could say, Mr. Developer, the planning board said this, and we think this, and then whatever.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
might short circuit it just to say, you know, we talked about the water and we talked about the gas line, and we're referring it. Okay.
Eric, is this just because there's a big chunk of land there, is this just like a beginning of what they envision up there, or do you
Yes.
know?
So you see that area that they call it as a future flex
Yeah.
development area.
Yeah.
Essentially, they want to kind of leave that part blank for the time being. So as part of this process, you know, it wouldn't be right now, but probably when they come in for the preliminary site plan approval, which would be the next stage of this, they'd also have to subdivide the section that they're proposing to develop from the one to remain. And then the piece that's subdivided off to be developed would be the one rezoned, not the remaining portion of it.
And Eric, did they talk, I know you and I talked about, excuse me, the portion where the road kind of goes up to the lot that goes towards Thomas Road?
Yep.
Have they said what the future development of that is as well?
Not at this point. I mean, they brought in a sketch plan to the planning board previously. I think that was under the conservation subdivision ordinance that they were proposing to sketch it out. But I'm not sure if they'll follow the same layout, which is available and we can show it, or if they'll change it in the future.
Gotcha. All right.
So the other thing the town board should be aware about, this is actually in the Uptown area. And obviously we have our Uptown feasibility study and everything that we're working on. So the timing is a little interesting, but that process has kind of slowed down a little bit with the budget adjustments that we had to make. So we don't have a lot of information to share with you right at the moment in terms of that. But, you know, something like this, I think, Eric, do you remember in the proposed, I know Sarah's been working on that a lot, but she's not on the call. But the Uptown area, I think for this area, generally referred to residential, right? Some sort of mixed residential.
That's right. This was supposed to be in the Uptown's mixed residential zoning area, but as I recall, with the changes to budget, we're doing like the two mixed use areas first, and then the zoning changes for mixed residential aren't happening just yet. There are some like more broad goals and form-based stuff within the Uptown plan that's already been adopted by the town. And I took a look at that and how this might relate to it. And generally it's, with the exception of some architectural stuff, generally it's kind of what they had in mind and maybe some more sidewalks and whatnot. But seems to be in mind with what they had for the mixed residential.
Yeah, good point on the sidewalks. A dense development like this without them is really difficult for people to be out and about in.
Yep.
If
I
they
think-
don't have a way to walk safely.
I think they're showing sidewalks, right, Eric, in here?
Just on one side.
Yeah. So that might be something that needs to be addressed. And as Eric pointed out, you know, we also have, we're working with Fisher Associates relative to the Auburn Trail on Brickyard Road, with that coming down Brickyard Road, and even early in the Uptown feasibility studies and everything, and even Terry, dating way back to when you worked on the Auburn study, back in 2012, 13, whenever it was, or even earlier, there was always kind of a calling out here for a possible connection of the Auburn Trail coming up here to Airport Road, because then there's a connection piece at that point going over to Blue Heron Park, so that the Auburn Trail, which obviously goes through Victor, Farmington, would come into Canandaigua, would go down to Outhouse Park, but would also, through this piece, this could be a potential key connector, come over to Airport Road. We've also got some property owners on Airport Road who are already willing to work with us. Lalit, who used to own Enterprise Rent-A-Car there on the corner, they tore that down. He's willing to work with us and get us a trail essentially across his property. And then eventually we'll be able to take that right to Blue Heron Park to connect. Theoretically, you could take a hike, walk, ride a bike, whatever, from Blue Heron to Outhouse to Farmington to downtown Victor. So.
Nice.
Okay. Next one, Sam, since you've been so quiet on the call, the next one is we're gearing up for parks. And Why don't we just take a second here to just kind of update everybody on what we're doing.
Okay. Sorry. So we have started with park rangers down at the park just because we noticed that there's been a lot of people down there. We're going to start with gate next Friday. Hours Thursday through Sunday with just Monday through Wednesday 1 to 6 just to help with checking into cabins, and we're not starting that until July since we don't have any rented right now. And then we have the lifeguards set to start Friday, tomorrow. So this is just hiring all those people, and then there's a budget transfer at the end you'll see, because with the COVID transfer we took all the money out of the gatehouse, so now we need some back in there, and then adding more money to the seasonal labor line, which is where the park rangers come out of too. And since we didn't have recreation, we're just going to move the money from the recreation personnel line to the gatehouse and the labor.
So just so everybody knows, so obviously with us not running the recreation program this summer, we have that money. We had not cut that originally, but the park is seeing a lot of use with everybody home. I've been down there a couple of times where it's just crazy, the amount of cars and everything down at Ononda specifically. And that's really the only one we're talking about here. This is all about Ononda. We're not planning anything at all right now for Butler Road Beach. But Sam and I, just so you guys know, and I'll touch base on this in the town board meeting too, but Sam and I went down, what was it, last Friday, and we did the sexual harassment, workplace harassment training with all of these folks to get that all taken care of. We had to go through, we did get our permit from the Department of Health to open Ononda Park Beach. We have told them as of tomorrow, right? For that, yep. And then we had to file a affirmation. We had to file, what was that other thing, that COVID-19 thing that we had to go through. And there's all kinds of extra hoops this year. There's always hoops, but there were a lot of extra hoops this year. And we had to put all kinds of a workplace in plan, and with the park rangers, even disinfecting the bathrooms and the door handles and the common areas. We've got the gatehouse with their masks and disinfecting things. So a lot of extra steps that had to be taken this year, but we're in good shape. It was helpful having, we had a park ranger start on Wednesday? Was that the first day we had a park ranger down there?
Yeah, yesterday.
And that came in helpful. That was helpful. Because even just seeing some stuff going on down in the park, for instance, like people smoking, people drinking, those types of things, and the park ranger was able to address some of that stuff where not having anybody down there right now, some of the stuff was going on. We had some vandalism down there and some other things. So now we've got our park rangers down there every day. And then the gates will be, I think you just said, right, Thursday?
Next Friday.
Next Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Is it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is when gates?
Yeah, usually, but I didn't schedule anyone for Thursday.
And then the park rangers will be there every day, so they'll be helping on those days where we don't have the gates there.
Yeah.
And then the lifeguards will be there every day going forward, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Are we charging entry fee?
starting not this week, next week.
Starting next Friday.
Next week. Okay, thank you.
We're definitely seeing, because I think a lot of people are home and now the kids are out of school. I mean, the lake has been so busy even during the week. So normally during the week where it's very calm and whatever, you know, because we live right there and we can see it. It's been like an ocean because there are just so many people out around the lakes right now. So it's good that we're starting this.
We probably, at least for the time being, we don't have the resources or ability to open the Butler Road Schoolhouse Beach for right now. So we're really just focused on Ononda, getting that open and operational. And then I know that, you know, we're still kind of waiting on guidance too relative to the cabins, but the plan still is that hopefully by July 1st, we'll have the lakeside cabins open. We're not planning to open up the uplands cabins just because of the extra workload and stuff involved with everything right now. We don't really have reservations for those at this point anyway for later in the year. So,
Well, because we closed it all out, right?
yeah, they're all boarded up and everything. And so we've got like King Hall that'll be open, and we've got the bathhouse open up on the upland side for people using the trail and that sort of thing. And we'll be monitoring that, and the increased the increased sanitization and the cleaning and that kind of stuff due to the COVID situation creates extra work for the staff. So we've just got to be careful about what we're doing this year. So,
Yeah.
all right.
All right.
Any questions on that? No. Okay. The next resolution, authorizing payment to Cara Jensen. So
This is the eyeglasses?
yes, this goes back, what, 4 years, I think?
Yeah, so last year you guys had approved a resolution and we actually caught a check to Cara Jensen, but she never came in and signed the release. And I told her, well, she wanted to submit two $50 chiropractor bills to be added to that. Well, we told her, you either sign the release and come get the check or submit the $100 and we'll get it added. Well, never heard back from her. So about 2-3 weeks ago, she called and wanted to submit, and she did submit the 2 receipts for $50 each. So this is what you see here, adding that $100. And then it sounds like she's willing to come in and sign the release after that and then just get her paid.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll finally be done with that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Good.
This next is the Cheshire Fire Department's amended certificate of incorporation. And Kathy, I don't know if you had anything additional you want to add on this, but basically this is with the changes that we made to Cheshire's coverage area. They updated their certificate of incorporation, and it needs to have all the town board members sign it, but we need a resolution that's passed by the board to authorize you guys to sign it.
I don't have anything else on that.
Oh, so this one has been hanging out there for quite a while. And EGS, Advanced Energy Solutions, is a company that comes in and does energy audits. There's no cost to us whatsoever to perform the energy audit. Originally, when I started talking to them, they were going to come in and look at our utility bills, which they did. They came in and went through our utility bills, and they believe that they can save us money, even though we've already switched to direct energy for the gas through the Municipal Electric and Gas Alliance. They work with Mega, and they work with a lot of municipalities in the area, all over Ontario County, City of Canandaigua, all over the state of New York. And they've been able to find pretty significant savings. There's no cost for us to do this energy audit with them. They'll go through it. They'll see if they can negotiate better rates, that sort of thing. The thing about this is, and you'll see it in the attachments, and I want to read through the attachments again too, and I would ask you guys to do the same. Attachment number 14. There is in this, if they're able to effectuate a savings for us, they want a percentage of the savings. That's how they get their money.
For a certain amount of time?
Yeah, for a certain time period. So I don't remember the exact time period off the top of my head, Linda, and that's why I want to go back and reread it again also, because it's been a while since I've looked at this. But in order for them to move forward, they want us to basically enter into this agreement that would allow them to go through and perform all this. So if there's no savings, there's no cost to the town. If there is a savings, it's just a percentage of the savings, and that's kind of what it is. So
Sounds like a win-win.
so, and then I think the rest of these are all these easements. This is the easements for Lakewood Meadows, the
Sureties.
sureties, Linda's favorite thing. I think they're sureties.
Yes.
And then the bills, the minutes and the bills.
And so the bills are out in our normal area, and we can come in and do those. Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Kate, you sent out the electronic version like we've been doing, right?
Yeah, that went out on Tuesday, and then Doug reviewed them on Wednesday and then brought them out. So so they're out in the area. We would just ask that you wear masks when you come into the building, and you know, maybe sit in a conference room so you're not really in the high traffic area. If you want to be there, just to be conscious of people going in and out.
And the majority of the bills in this abstract, and you see it right here on the agenda too, dated 6/9, capital projects. It's mostly the water project. Of the $290,000 we're spending, 180,000 of it's gym. Well, actually, no, 230,000 of it's gym. Not that we're counting gym.
Just me. It's all me this month.
Yeah, all Jim, all the time.
Boy, I've heard that lately.
Yeah. So if we're done with the agenda, I saw the note from the guy on Squaw Island. Is that even in our responsibility?
That's a state park.
Yeah.
Squaw Island is a state park. It's the smallest state park in the state park system. That is 100% the state of New York.
So has anyone come back to him to say, you probably need to talk to state of New York? Because I don't think he knows who to talk to, and he's sending it to a lot of people. Is that what's going on?
I don't think I've received anything on it.
Oh, I
You did?
just got in the mail today, so we can forward it to you. He might have just took all of our, because he's just saying, Canandaigua council people. And so I was thinking, I thought it was the city, but now that you say it's the state, I just feel like we would be seen as helpful if somebody said to him, hey, probably have to talk to the state because it's a state park.
There's a huge conversation on Facebook.
Yeah, I saw that.
Page. It's huge.
Yeah.
A lot of people are commenting on it. A lot of
Yeah,
people on both sides of the fence.
I feel like that's why he probably sent it forward.
Okay.
All right.
But probably would be helpful for somebody to go back to them and refer them to state parks,
Right. Yeah. Well, we can do that for sure. But we'll send it over to you too, Doug, so that you have it.
I'd be happy to do it.
Okay, perfect, Kathy.
Good.
Can you make sure that I have something in the file because it is town board correspondence?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so maybe send it both, or we'll copy both Doug and Jean on it. So
Okay.
that you
That'd be
can
great. Thank you.
both get a copy of it. My little list, I've checked off all the 4 things other than the agenda. Does anybody else have anything that they wanted to discuss?
No?
No? Well, it looks like it's going to be a cloudy day out there, but stay
Yeah.
safe, everyone. Meeting adjourned.
Have a good day, everybody.
Hi.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye. Have a good day.